Hello and welcome back to another World of Warcraft Warlords of Draenor alpha video. This time I'm going to be talking about datamine information in regards to scenarios and then challenge mode dungeons. So there's a point in this video that's actually going to get very spoilery, and don't worry, I'll mark that out, but my recommendation is that as soon as I say that, I will give you time to turn the video off, but just stop the video there, honestly, because you don't want to ruin things for yourself, and there's just some information I'll put there for completeness, and because I actually do have personal thoughts on it, and that is, of course, the point of having a YouTube channel. So then, challenge modes and scenarios. There are quite a few of them, actually. So far, it's looking like we're going to have 12 scenarios, and then, well, 6 dungeons, but it's looking like there could be a 7. I'm not particularly sure, because one of them is marked with a bracket that says PH in it, and then is not included on the list of achievements that have been datamined, so it's hard to know. Overall, though, what do I think of that? Well, honestly, there's not enough dungeons, Now, in terms of unique tile sets, like Auchindoun as an example, that's 1 dungeon. Well, back in the Burning Crusade, Auchindoun was 4, and each of them were pretty different. And the same goes for quite a lot of things, so I am actually a little bit concerned about dungeons. However, if they do plan on adding more before the actual game launches, or perhaps if they plan on adding more in future content patches, then I'll be okay. But as a base, I am a little bit concerned about that. Now, as for scenarios, the scenarios themselves, I'm not a giant fan of scenarios, but they do sound quite interesting, actually. So overall, that's the kind of the shape of things, and really in this video, things are just going to get more and more and more spoiler heavy as we go on. So, giant spoiler warning here. I'm just going to go and list off the names of them, and the humongous spoilers will happen after that. So in terms of the names, well, we have the Spires of Iraq as being a dungeon. We also have the Blood Maw, the Blood Maw Slag Mines. That's one of the ones that we've actually been shown. Then we have Auchindoun, which is in a Draenor burial ground. Then there's the, well, keeping on the burial ground theme, actually, there's the Shadowmoon Burial Grounds dungeon. Then there's the Iron Depot, which I'm assuming is something to do with attacking the Iron Force hordes, like production lines or something like that. And then there's Upper Blackrock Spire, which we know about. And then there's one which is only there in terms of a string, and it's not listed on the list of dungeon achievements, but I think it will end up being there. And it's just called Shaper Dungeon, and it's also to do with the Spires of Iraq. So overall, that's what dungeons are looking like. Pretty interesting. So in terms of scenario names, now I'm afraid that the scenario names themselves actually give away quite a bit. So I'm going to list them off here for completeness, but just keep in mind, if you don't want to know that stuff, then turn the video off. So they are the Purge of Gromar, Razorfen Krull, which is interesting, but I mean, we all know that place, the Mines of Draenor, Gorgron Finale, Dawson's Creek, Bone Town Scenario, the Battle of Thunder Pass, the Battle of Shatrath, Black Fathom Deeps, the Rise of Akumai, Akumai. Some Twilight Hammer stuff, apparently. Then there's the Thunderlord Invasion, as being another one. Then we have, I think, finally, the Defense of Karabor. Now, interestingly enough, these are the sort of things which, like, they honestly feel like kind of quest-style things, but you are definitely able to queue for them. I've confirmed that by looking through some of the datamined information. That's really cool, actually. I didn't know that any of this Warlords of Draenor news was going to drop, and my planned video for this Saturday was actually based on scenarios and where I think they should go. And one of the things that I said is that there's going to be a lot of battles that happen throughout Draenor, and it would be really nice if we could capture them in scenarios. It would be a sort of developer, I don't know, it'd just be a palatable way to do it. Because sometimes perhaps doing a giant battle in the form of a dungeon perhaps doesn't make much sense, whereas a scenario could maybe pull it off. Preferably, of course, a heroic scenario. But yeah, it seems like they've actually went and done that, which is very good, very interesting, actually. So that's what we're looking at the minute. Now, I'm going to talk about some of the objectives inside the scenarios. This is the spoiler bit. This is giant spoilers. Well, probably is anyway. So if you don't want to know, then, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and if you're still here, then you probably don't mind. So, in the Purge of Gromar, this is a very interesting one, actually. Now, Gromar is, from what I can tell, one of the main Iron Horde places that is, on which the attack on Karabor is being just kind of orchestrated from. So, that's kind of interesting, actually. Now, what happens here is you end up speaking to Vindicator Murad, who is one of the characters that you spend a lot of time with. Then you make your way throughout the scenario, killing some things. Then you basically, it seems like you mount up, you know, go on some sort of sky flying thing, slay a whole bunch of things, and then kill their commander and basically purge the city, or purge the settlement. That sounds like a really, just in terms of premise, it sounds really fun. That's definitely kind of nice, actually. So I'm interested in that. I'm also just interested in the story elements of it too. Then also, raise your friend Krull. Well, in this you're just defeating the forces of the Death's Hand, Quilboar, inside their city. If you actually check out my channel, I have a lore video on the Razor Fen, so that might be of interest to you. And then there's one called the Mines of Draenor, and all that's listed here is collect resources. Mine as much before you run out of steam power, as much as you can. This seems like maybe a solo loot scenario in which you have to just mine as much stuff as you can. Maybe you get some reward at the end, and it's all about how much steam power you have left, perhaps. So that's kind of interesting. Alright, so the next one is the Gorgrond Finale. Now the Gorgrond Finale, that's a thing I'm just not going to spoil, actually. But suffice to say, it involves attacking a dock, and it looks really badass. And it's got some really cool characters in it. So I think that that's going to be very interesting, actually. And just in general, this Gorgrond, the Gorgrond questing experience does sound interesting. Perhaps the zone isn't the one that really strikes me as being the most cool, but I think that it could just turn into some really cool, just basic war-style stuff. And sometimes we you know, in Warcraft, we kind of get carried away with high-concept stuff, and we forget to just fight the war, so hopefully that's what will happen there. There's one here called Dawson's Creek, which involves killing people in Stoneard, which I think is an orc settlement. That's a settlement. I remember it from Outlands. I don't know why it's called Dawson's Creek, but hey, there's not much information for it. So that's kind of cool. Then there's one called the Bone Town scenario, in which you need to stop the Bleeding Hollow shamans from reanimating a whole bunch of skeletons, which is kind of interesting, actually, and this is... Well, there's a certain character here that may die, you know, big spoiler, 3, 2, 1, blah, 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 Kilrog Deadeye. You end up confronting him, no idea if he dies. But it looks interesting, actually, so I think the this clan of orcs, they maybe they kind of start reanimating things. I don't know if that's cool with the orcs, actually. They're generally not into that kind of thing, so maybe, I don't know. Lore-wise, that's interesting. I guess it does fit with the whole idea of whatever, you know, you can use it when it comes to power, and that seems to be one of the main Iron Horde things. So that's certainly an interesting thing to see. Then there's one called the Battle of Thunder Pass. This is very interesting, actually. Basically, you and Druitan end up, well, attacking a whole bunch of Iron Horde warriors, and destroying some of their catapults and things like that, and then killing one of their leaders. Not leader, I don't mean leader of the Iron Horde as in, you know, one of the title characters, but just higher up. So that looks kind of cool. I really do like how these are big battles. And then next there's one, and this is maybe a spoiler in itself, actually. So, yeah, spoiler alert, it's called the Battle of Shatrath. I've actually already said that, so whatever, yeah, I've already given you my spoiler alert. Sorry, I know I'm being really pedantic about spoilers, just I don't want to ruin stuff for people. So yes, the Battle of Shatrath, this actually looks really cool. You, as an Alliance player, along with Khadgar, end up holding the city, and that kind of thing, which is extremely interesting looking. And I don't know if you have any support from the traditional horde, not sure about that, but yeah, overall, very cool. Ogrim Doomhammer's involved, but of course, I'd imagine from the... Yeah, he would be from the Iron Horde perspective, so it's interesting how that character will pan out. Still though, really, really damn cool. So I can't wait. Just you've probably seen the video already on my channel, but it's the one where I looked through the maps of Draenor, and I've got to say that, well, like, Shatrath looks amazing, so it'll be cool to have some giant big set piece happen inside that. And then there's one, the Blackfathom Deeps, the Rise of Akumai. Wow, they're, you know, between this and Razorfang Crawl, they really are going back, and I think that's an okay thing to do for scenarios, really. So we'll just be fighting the Twilight's Hammer. Seems like more of a thing in the past, so that's kind of cool. Then there's also the Thunderlord Invasion. No idea what a Thunderlord is, but it seems to be orc-related based on the names, and I think you just drive back some people, fight off some assassins, and kill their leader. Doesn't look particularly interesting, but maybe these Thunderlords are going to be an interesting part of the... I don't know, whatever. Well, we'll find out when the expansion comes. Then finally we have the Defense of Karabor. Now, this is kind of interesting. Basically, you defend Karabor until like a Naru becomes really empowered. Now, maybe the Naru power is enough to fight off the Iron Horde, but that's definitely cool. And one thing that's actually worth mentioning here is that a lot of these are based off, I think, major events inside zones. Does that mean that we'll actually be doing some of this story content with other players? That could turn out really well. It could also turn out poorly. I'm not particularly sure of what I think about that, but you know what? I guess I'd rather just have a few really hard group quests like what we had back in Outland than just making some of these things into scenarios for the initial leveling up experience. But from an endgame perspective, these do seem a little bit more interesting than the Miss of Pandaria scenarios, which honestly were, you're helping people brew beer. Whatever, it's a bit whimsical, but it's not really as epic as defending Shatrat City from a horde of rampaging orcs. I think that's far cooler. So anyway, yeah, that's basically the lowdown on this. That's my thoughts on it. Hope you found that stuff interesting. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next Warlords of Draenor video.